George Kilpatrick Inspiration for the Nation, celebrating people we feel good about. I could not resist. Tomorrow's the big day. It's an eclipse. At some point tomorrow afternoon, we will have a darkened day. How dark? I don't know. I'm going to ask this expert that I have from Syracuse University. Walter Freeman is an associate teaching professor at Syracuse University. He's a physicist. He teaches a class on Intro to Astronomy, as well as research and computational methods. But let's talk eclipse, Walter. And so thank you for coming on.
Of course.
And explaining to me why this is such a big deal. So why is it such a big deal? Let's start with that.
It's such a big deal. It's such a big deal because it's beautiful.
Okay.
I'd like you to think, when the last time thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people in the same place all stopped what they were doing and looked up, right? Syracuse University is basically canceling classes Monday afternoon, tomorrow afternoon. And we're all going to go out on the quad, and everybody, thousands of students, are going to be out on the quad, all looking at the same beautiful thing in the sky. And I'd like you to think when the last time that happened was. And often it's something horrible,
right,
that causes that, right? You know, for me, that was September 11th, right? But sometimes it's something beautiful. And nature is going to give us this beautiful gift tomorrow. The sun's going to go away for a minute or two or three and then come back. And this is a purely natural thing. And it has whatever meaning we give it, right? It doesn't mean anything unless we give it that meaning. And the beauty is something we ascribe to it. And we as humanity have kind of collectively agreed that this is beautiful, this is awesome, and it's something that we can unite around and find glory in.
You know, I was practicing my introduction. I was going to say, when the moon is in the 7th house and Jupiter aligns with Mars. And so it's not the age of Aquarius. We're actually in the age of Aries. So that's a little astrology, not astronomy. Okay, I get it. But I mean, the fact is, it is happening, and it's precisely about 3 o'clock that this is going to happen, sometime between 3 and 3:30 Eastern time.
It depends on where exactly you are, right? So we're going to get several hours of increasing partial eclipse,
okay,
over a wide band of North America, right? You know, reaching down from the deep south up into Canada. But there is a narrow band that will experience a total eclipse for a couple of minutes during that window, and the region experiencing totality will move very quickly from Mexico to Texas, across the upper Midwest, into New York, where I am, and up through Maine. Each place along that path will only experience totality for just a few minutes.
And so you said it depends on the time. So in New York, I'm thinking, in Syracuse, New York, isn't that going to be around between 3? Because everything is closing between that time.
Yeah.
So that's about the time. So when was the last time we had a total eclipse that we could see here?
How narrowly do you mean here? Do you mean in New York, or do you mean in
New York? In New York.
In New York, I believe it was about a century ago.
Really?
There was a total solar eclipse that was visible from the west and the upper deep south in 2017 that many people experienced totality for. I was actually out west the week before that, and then I wasn't there for totality because I had to come back here and start the semester, right? So this is the first time I will have seen anything like this.
And so where's the best visibility is going to be here in New York? I understand that all of the hotel rooms around here are sold out, and people are coming from all over, because we're going to have, and particularly upstate New York, is going to have one of the best eclipses or total eclipses anywhere.
Yeah, so when you're thinking about best visibility, I want to give you kind of a practical answer, and I want to give you
make it work for me.
Well, I want to give you a practical answer, and I also want to give you a poetic answer.
Okay.
So the practical answer is that there is a band that will experience totality. And the closer you are to the center of that band, the longer of totality you will experience, right? In the center, it's between 3.5 and 4 minutes. The center of that band runs from in New York at least, vaguely from Buffalo over the lake and up through Watertown. Syracuse is just on the southern edge of that band. So if you want to see totality for longer, we're going to get 1.5 minutes here, but if you go either west or north, you'll experience totality for 3.5 minutes. So that's one thing.
And before you give me the poetic answer, does that mean that it'll be complete darkness at that time, or what will we actually physically experience before the poetic answer?
Not complete darkness. There will still be some small amount of light coming around the edge of the moon, but not much. There's also some small amount of light that, especially here in Syracuse, because we are near the southern edge of totality, we will see light on the horizon from the non-eclipsed parts of Earth. I've heard that's quite a striking experience,
Right.
and I've never experienced this, right? But it will be dark enough that all of the plants and animals will be very, very confused. And the birds start acting very strange, right? Because it's not supposed to be dark yet, but it is. And they start behaving as though it were night for a few minutes.
Really? And then what's the poetic answer?
So the poetic answer about the best places to visit to view the eclipse from are, it's not about latitude and longitude. It's not about, minutes or seconds of totality. It's about what you think will make that special to you, right? So here at Syracuse University tomorrow, thousands of students are going to be out on the quad, and I'm gesturing out here because that's out my office window. Thousands of students are going to be out on the quad, all looking up at the same time, the same place. And maybe that's what would be special to you, being surrounded by a crowd. Maybe it would be special to you to be out in somewhere natural. Many of our state parks here are having events. Onondaga Lake State Park is having an event. Many of the others are too. Maybe you want to be in a natural place. Maybe you want to be somewhere truly remote, out in a place that's not even on the map, out in the woods, where you've camped the night before, maybe by yourself, maybe with the person or people you love, your family, your closest friends. And that answer is going to be very different for every person's heart, right? So I would encourage potential eclipse watchers to think carefully about what would make your soul happiest, where you want to be and who you want to be with when you experience totality, not just counting minutes on a map.
Do I just want to just go in my backyard, and is that just fine?
Probably. So the one thing is the totally eclipsed sun will be in the southwestern sky. So if your house is right, if from your backyard you have a clear view up in the southwestern sky, that's great. Okay. But if you live in a larger city, if you have a tall house, I'm thinking of where I used to live in Washington, D.C., with my aunt who had a tall 3-story townhouse, I wouldn't have been able to see the southern sky from her little piece of backyard. Right. But if you have enough backyard and it faces in the direction where you can see the southwestern sky from your backyard, that's wonderful.
And so from this significance, you talked about it in a lot of different ways, but scientifically, what's happening?
So scientifically, what's happening? Yeah. So, as we know, the Earth goes around the sun, the moon goes around the Earth, and by happenstance, two things happen that are sort of remarkable. One of them is we know that the moon is much smaller than the sun, but the moon is also much closer than the sun. So by kind of an accident, the moon and the sun appear to be the same size in the sky, just because the moon is both closer and smaller, the sun is larger and more distant. And so if you take the moon and you put it in front of the sun, the moon kind of very neatly fits in front of the sun and blocks out all of its light. Because they appear to be exactly the same size, in order to have a total eclipse, they have to line up exactly perfectly. That's why totality is so brief. So that's what's happening, right? Is that the moon gets in front of the sun and blocks its light from a very specific place on Earth that has that alignment happen. Another way to say it is the moon, like anything between us and the sun, casts a shadow, and in totality, the moon's shadow is completely over you. You might say, well, why doesn't this happen all the time? Well, so the moon goes around the Earth, and it goes around once per month, right? That's where our word month comes from. It's really moonth.
Right.
That's really where the word comes from.
Right.
But the moon's orbit is tilted by about 5 degrees. So most of the time, so I'm gonna move my finger around my head, right? Most of the time, imagine that my eyes are the sun and that you are the Earth. Most of the time, the moon passes either above or below the sight line between you, the Earth, and my eyes, the sun. But during a total solar eclipse, it goes right in between. And that has to line up just right. So that's why we don't get a total solar eclipse every month, because the moon's orbit is tilted by 5 degrees.
And so you said that this is only going to be visible in certain parts of the world as it's happening. And so we've had other eclipses, as I remember, as kids, right? What was I experiencing at other points in my life?
So you may have remembered a solar eclipse, in some other part of the world in at some other time, and I don't know when, there was the 2017 eclipse in Western North America and the northern part of the Deep South. I don't remember when the last one visible in the lower 48 was. But the other kind of eclipse, right? So we've talked about the moon getting between the sun's light and Earth. But the other thing that happens is sometimes the Earth gets between the sun's light and the moon. So at a time when we are supposed to have a full moon, instead, the Earth's shadow falls on the moon and blocks out the full moon for a bit. And since the Earth is way bigger than the moon, it's much easier for the Earth's shadow to land on the moon, because we got a bigger shadow, right? We're a bigger planet, than it is for the moon's shadow to land on the Earth because the moon's so small. So those eclipses that you're thinking of are total lunar eclipses.
Thank you.
This is where the moon is the thing that's being shadowed. Sometimes this is called a blood moon. It has nothing to do with blood. I'd like to offer maybe a more poetic view of this. So Earth and the moon are different because the moon doesn't have an atmosphere, but the Earth does. So, after the sun has already set, you're out with the people you love, you're watching the sunset, it's beautiful. The sun goes below the horizon and you see that red glow of the Earth's atmosphere bending sunlight around the edge of the Earth. But you saw some of that light out on the mountains with the people you love watching the sunset. But the leftover red light bending around the Earth's surface keeps on going. So even when the moon is totally eclipsed by Earth's shadow, all of the leftover light from all of the sunsets happening everywhere on Earth keeps on going, and the blood moon is really being lit by leftover light from 1,000 sunsets all around the Earth.
Oh, that's beautiful right there.
It is, and I didn't come up with that, right? I take credit for that poetry, but I share that story because it's gorgeous.
That's all right. So it's a significant event. So you can head up to Syracuse. What will the view be like at Syracuse University tomorrow?
So hopefully clear, right? We are known for being a very, very cloudy place. You know about our reputation for snow.
Yes.
But the view from Syracuse University, so everyone's going to be out on the quad. Classes are being canceled in the afternoon in most places. Of course, we're canceling everything in the physics department. We'll all be out there. But students will be there with their Eclipse glasses. We've got, Syracuse Orange branded Eclipse glasses.
And why do we need those glasses?
So if you just go look at the sun, on an ordinary day, you're going to burn a circular hole in your retina, and that will be the last thing that that place of your retina sees. That's bad. We don't go stare at the sun. But if you go look at the sun when it's partially blocked by the moon and only a crescent of sun peeks out from behind the moon, you will burn a crescent-shaped hole in your retina. It's a different shaped hole, but it's just as bad, right? So during the partial eclipse, which will last for hours, it's not safe to look at the moon eclipsing the sun because there's still that piece of the sun poking out from behind the moon. But during totality, during that minute or two or three, no piece of the sun is facing you. So during totality, you can take off your glasses. But otherwise, you're going to be looking directly at the sun if you want to look at this. And you need special dark glasses to do that safely.
And not my shades that are photo grade. That's not going to work.
No. They have special.
So where do you get these glasses?
Syracuse University has gotten a bazillion of them. I don't have a pair in my office, but we have a bazillion of them. We have our local general store where you can get salsa and chips is selling them. A bunch of Wegmans might even sell them at our local grocery store, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's stocking up on this.
There you go. All right. So if you don't have any, they're available somewhere. All right.
They're available somewhere. Yeah. Google Eclipse glasses for sale, my city. You'll find them.
Well, this is amazing. Thank you so much, Walter. Anything else we need to know to have an eclipse? I couldn't think of anything pithy. So we'll just say anything we could do to make our eclipse experience totally amazing.
I want to share a last thought. So you're going to have a lot of time to think during the partial eclipse, right? And you're probably going to have a lot of time to think stuck in traffic too. And I'd like to offer something maybe to think about, which is eclipses have been happening, for a very long, since before there were humans, right? And every human culture has had an experience with a total solar eclipse. This goes far back into antiquity, right? And humans, all around the world, every culture has had their own attachment of the solar eclipse to their own particular religion and art and mythology and way of interacting with the world. But in many places, it was something terrifying, right? Something has eaten the sun. The sun has gone away. And then it comes back a few minutes later, but an eclipse was a bad omen, a thing of terror, right? The sun is a life giver. We rely on the sun for heat and light and warmth and agriculture and food. And if something happened to the sun, that's really bad, right? So for much of human history, the eclipse has represented something bad, something horrible, and something mysterious, right? Why does it happen? When will it happen next? Those answers were often elusive to early humans. But now we know, right? Now we're talking about exactly when, exactly where, exactly why. We're having this interview knowing that this will happen tomorrow, right? So the solar eclipse now is something well understood. Everyone's buying their eclipse glasses. Everyone's making plans. Everyone's figuring out what they will do. All of the hotel rooms are booked out. Photographers are planning to make art out of this, and they're having to set up their shots in advance, knowing exactly where in the sky, exactly where they will put their tripod and what moment it will happen at. We understand this very, very well, and it's something that we're not terrified of anymore. It's something that we comprehend, that we realize is natural, that it's just a thing that nature does, and now we have the opportunity, now that we're no longer terrified of it, now that we understand it, to make meaning out of it, to make beauty out of it, to make art out of it, and to come together as a humanity and all look up at the sky and say, wow, that's stunning. And I'd like to offer that this is a microcosm of the human story over the millennia. That it's not just solar eclipses we've done this with, right? Ancient humans, ancient cultures often saw lightning as something fickle. It's Zeus throwing lightning bolts at people he's angry at. It's Thor using lightning as a weapon against the giants. But now we can bottle lightning, right? I'm talking to you on a laptop running Zoom, and I'm not plugged into the wall. How am I able to use my laptop? Well, I have lightning in a bottle in my laptop. It's called a lithium battery that is powering it, right? It's lightning sloshing back and forth. Many of us drive around on cars powered by lightning in a bottle. And compare that to how people thought of lightning 2,000 years ago. And you could go on and on and on about things where that humanity used to be terrified of, but now we understand. Now we are no longer afraid of them, and we can make art and beauty and technology and humanity out of them. So in your time to reflect, before and after the solar eclipse, maybe a thing to reflect on is how this is a symbol of just how far humanity has come in the last thousands of years of recorded history, and maybe where are we going to be next? I don't know, but I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, and the significance of this, we're 4 years out of, well, I don't know if we're out of COVID, but I mean, since the outbreak
Mhm.
of it and the separation of community, now to have the opportunity
Mhm.
for communities and individuals to be together is certainly a
Mhm.
stark contrast to that. Walter Freeman, Associate Teaching Professor at Syracuse University, thank you for your time and
Of
for
course.
helping us understand the significance, not only scientifically about what's happening tomorrow as a physicist, but also poetically uh,
Mhm.
as to the true meaning of life. You sure you weren't a philosopher as well in your background?
So I don't think these things are all that different, right? I think that all of us are just trying to find meaning in different pathways, right? Like we are a liberal arts university. We like most universities, most academics, I don't think physics and philosophy are that far apart, right? Our field used to be called natural philosophy. I have philosophy students and poets and English majors who do fantastically in astronomy classes. And after all, my own degree is PhD is Doctor of Philosophy. So there's a little bit of philosophy in all of what we do and in what you do too.
Amen. Dr. Walter Friedman, thank you so much for your time today and appreciate you. And looking forward to having the experience of totality
Mhm.
tomorrow,
So am I.
April the 8th, sometime in the afternoon, sometime around 3 o'clock Eastern time in New
Yep.
York. And we look forward to that collective experience where we're all be looking up
Thank you so much for
for
talking to me.
inspiration for the nation.